Hi again, the intimate man at your service. Namaste. Of course, I'm with the same whatever outfit because this clip is right after the last one. But the reason I cut at certain point, I believe I explained before, and then continue on a new segment. It's because I don't want each segment to go on and on for a long time and bored you. So I'm making them as small pieces. I think it would be easier to digest. Anyway, the reason I stopped going further and further into understanding life and playing it right to our favor and tilt the scale in the balance of all things, of the big picture, to our favor by understanding the laws, understanding energy and all that. I was watching one of my clips, and in a very compassionate way, I put myself in the shoes of the viewer, and I started in a valid way criticizing myself. I said to myself that a viewer can look at you and see that you're, let's say, happy and energetic and you have something to say and you think it's important and you want to share with the rest of the world and all that. But all of that, all of these poetic statements or loving statements, they're just statements. You are not, probably not, never have experienced an intense level of pain and suffering. Probably you haven't lost a child. Probably you were not involved in an accident that paralyzed you from neck down. Probably you were not born with a huge defect that truly limits you physically and even emotionally in life. And probably you were never truly starved or lived under a bridge to feel. So because I kind of, from your energy, your demeanor, I can kind of conclude that, yeah, you may have your share of suffering and pain, but not to such an intense level that no justification, it's acceptable. No explanation, no formula, no laws, no nothing. I mean, what can you tell to a mother that they lost their child, like to accident, cancer, or what have you? What pretty words can you use? How can you, And then I decided that I would like to address, even though if I not personally to that extent experience the level of pain and suffering, at least acknowledge them. That's the least I can do. The least I can do is to show respect to those pain and suffering, level of pain and suffering, and absolutely feeling helpless, which is, I think, the pinnacle of suffering, when you feel like there is nothing you can do in any way, shape, or form to change that situation that is causing you so much pain. At least I can show respect that yes, they are very bad situations, and these may be nice and everything to hear or to know, but it has to be felt here, and it's very hard to feel them when you're in that state. And also some questions like, how are you going to justify the suffering of an innocent child in a country that there is war, and that child lost the mom and a dad and a leg and limb and probably is going to die eventually and never experience any joy, never live the childhood of his or her life? How are you going to explain the reason for a baby getting miscarried? You know, the baby was 6 months old, it was a boy or it was a girl, it already had a name, the room was ready and all that, and it goes without even getting a chance to become to this world, experience, as you say, this earthly form and go through life and hopefully have an awakening and awareness and consciousness of what is what. So how would you explain that? What was the reason for that being coming and going so fast, even without even reaching the platform of the actual planet Earth? I thought about so many scenarios, so many scenarios. Let me tell you one thing as honestly as I can. I may not even be able to imagine that level of pain, let alone say that I know how you feel. No, not at all. But these questions, even prior to all these public sessions, were always in my mind. Even though I did not experience them firsthand, but I could see that there is really not much an answer to certain really sad and painful situations that people experience day in and day out. And because of those thoughts, so I wasn't looking only at my life. No, actually, I was looking at the suffering part of life, and I was trying to explain it without losing the faith that there is a divine and there is justice, but how come I don't see it? And especially in the case of children, how come, that child didn't do anything, didn't tilt the scale at all? It wasn't even here to tilt the scale one way or the other. None of these laws actually, justifies his or her very early departure and a lot of other scenarios. And that's why I started going deep inside and trying to see what's in there. And what I found may not reduce the pain and suffering of people experiencing these awful things, but nevertheless, it brought me here to all of this that even I might have experienced in my previous lives, or I may experience it was the remainder of my life, that God forbid, intense level of pain and all that. And when you get to a very comfortable, I don't want to say the highest level of understanding, no, because I don't even know what that is. But when you get to the level that then you realize, at least I have some explanation for why things happen the way they do. And because of those explanations, or this explanation, or this awakening, or this level of consciousness, at least it brings me peace and it makes some sense. So I can even to some level predict what might happen, or explain something. Have you noticed that, when people lose their loved ones to a crime, the first thing they want to ask the person who committed the crime is why? And when they get an answer, like, yes, I went to your house to steal this and that, but things turned really bad and I ended up killing your son. And that understanding gives some level of closure, some level of peace, that explanation that ends up in your understanding gives you some level of power over the things that you felt powerless. And this is where we are going with that. Namaste.